Hello everybody, welcome back to the studio. I'm Joe, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit about the Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, specifically an article that came out by The Hollywood Reporter about Peter Jackson saying Amazon's Lord of the Rings TV series ghosted him. And man, oh man, if the juice doesn't get any more pungent with this show, I don't know what to say. I honestly don't. The thing is, there's been so much controversy around the Rings of Power. And honestly, with good reason. Peter Jackson created a film trilogy that we love so incredibly much. And yet at the same time, they're ghosting that very man and not sending him scripts and not including him in the process, not having him as an accountability source for the source material of this beloved J.R.R. Tolkien series, okay? And I'm not saying the series is beloved, I'm just saying the story is definitely beloved by fans, by millions of people for their entire lives. I know on this channel alone, we had like a man who was in his 70s leave a comment on our videos about Lord of the Rings and that he has been a lifelong fan. And he wrote like this little portion of his comment in Elvish. This is an important story to so many people. And yet the controversy thickens. It gets wild. Okay, so first off, for the past months, since the posters, the pictures, the teaser, and now a few trailers that we've seen for the series The Rings of Power coming out in September on Amazon Prime, there's been a ton of backlash. And this film has an enormous budget, well over $100 million. I think this article claims it was $500 million in total for this series budget. I have to say, that's an excessive amount of money to spend. But the fans are not happy. The traditional Lord of the Rings fans, kind of, I would say like 80% are not excited for this series. And a big reason for that is because so many people feel they are not doing Tolkien justice. They're not giving him the respect that he deserves when it comes to his story inside of Middle-earth, you know, the story of the origin of these beloved characters like Galadriel, like Elrond, you know, and these people groups like the dwarves, the elves, the hobbits. And I have to say, I'm not too far off from what I've seen personally. And if you follow this channel, you'll know that we've done reaction trailers. We've talked about it on our podcast. And there's a lot of red flags. There's a lot of red flags. And one thing that I know I am most worried about is that the focus of what this messaging for the story is, this purpose behind making the show is that it's kind of front-loading a little bit of modern social politics and not as much of what Tolkien cared about, not as much of what Tolkien valued, what he found that his body of work messaged to people, what he believed in, what he thought was important for people to understand from his story. And I know we live in a different era, but that doesn't mean that those principles that he put into the foundation of his work for his story isn't relevant today. Stories of darkness coming into power, stories of friendship, stories of peaceful living, finding hope, moving, like doing something and fighting a battle, fighting for something that you know is right, you know is correct, against all hope, against all antagonist figures, that you fight for the hope of good being in this world. And these are the things that Tolkien embedded into his body of work. And in some ways, I believe Peter Jackson was the perfect director. I know he's had some backlash from the estate of Tolkien, saying that they turned Tolkien's story into kind of an action story for young people. But one thing that I'm not too excited about this article. So let me first read what Peter Jackson said, okay? So this is a quote from Peter Jackson. They asked me if I wanted to be involved, and I said that's an impossible question to answer without seeing the script. Jackson recalls to Scott Feinberg, blah, 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 blah. So they said, as soon as we get the first couple scripts, we'll send them to you. And the scripts never showed up. That's the last thing I heard, which was fine. No complaints at all. I have to say, I would feel incredibly disrespected from someone who spent so much time crafting a story that is beloved and won so many awards across the board. People that are hardcore Tolkien fans, even though the Tolkien estate had negative reviews towards the Lord of the Rings fans, the fans, the people that care for Tolkien, like myself, who read the books and watched the movies, we believe that the films did not change the material, that didn't grasp its essence. It didn't miss the importance of what the books were communicating. And that's honestly something I'm really worried about when it comes to this new show. I don't think that anybody should delve into the works of Tolkien, should delve into the world of Middle-earth and take it lightly. And I've heard some quotes. I'm not going to bring them up here because I want the show to speak for itself. But I have heard some quotes from the creators of The Rings of Power, and you can find them online, that seems like they are creating a story inside of the world of Tolkien that is not written, that is not produced, and doesn't come from the mind of Tolkien, doesn't come from the values of Tolkien, and are saying that we need to make it tangible. We need to make it fit the problems and messages and movements of today. And we've seen this. I'm not going to go on to any kind of social justice rant or woke world rant, because that's not what I think is important. I'm here to entertain people. But at the same time, if you're injecting 2022 values into a show, into a story that is not meant for this time and has a specific purpose for why it was written, well, you have made a grave mistake. A grave mistake. And I think the fans, I think all of the money they spent on this, I don't think is going to be received back to them. And I think they're going to be bitten in the behind extremely hard. I think they're going to feel the repercussions of the poor choices that they have made. Now, this is what I'm going to do. I am going to give the show 4 episodes. This is what I did with Wheel of Time. I didn't go past 3 or 4 episodes because it was terrible. It was absolutely terrible. Not to say that the creators are crossover from Wheel of Time, but I'm going to give it 4 episodes, and if it does not hold to the values that I believe Tolkien represented, if the overall narrative from the fan base of Tolkien fans are not pleased with it, and they have a litany of reasons, a list of purposes behind their arguments, then I will not watch further and I will not enjoy the show, because I honestly, I can't watch something, I can't promote, I can't put my stamp of approval on something that I don't believe in. And I value in high regard J.R.R. Tolkien's work of Middle-earth, his novels, and from what I understand, they don't even have, Amazon Prime does not even have many of the rights to the story itself. They're kind of building a story pulled out of their butts, essentially. and adding all of this other politically narrative stuff to it that's really going to be depressing down the road. However, in this article, Peter Jackson does bring up that he doesn't have any hard feelings, that he's interested in watching the show and seeing what they come up with. And that's honestly where I'm coming from. I don't know what the show's going to be like. I'm actually currently reading the Silmarillion. I know it's not based on the Silmarillion, but it's based on the same accounts of historical timeline that the Silmarillion explains. So I'm reading the Silmarillion right now so that I have a good concept, a good understanding of what takes place. And there's a lot that happens. This is based out of the Second Age of Middle-earth. And so those are kind of my thoughts. I remember the first time I was exposed to anything Lord of the Rings, and it was from the hands of Peter Jackson. It was from the creators of Lord of the Rings. I remember when I first saw the peaceful, fun, happy lifestyle of the hobbits during Bilbo's 111th birthday, where they're dancing and being mischievous and having a good time. And then contrasting that with when they are in the mines of Moria and Pippin drops the skeleton with a full body of armor, one of the dwarf skeletons, down that hole, that chamber, and it awakes, it informs the orcs and the cave troll and all the goblins there that they are in the mines and they have to fight their way out, and the Balrog shows up. Man, I was hooked. I was so captivated by this story. And then I read the books and I said, there's some extra stuff in the books and there was a little bit of changing, but there's not like contradiction here from what the movie showed me. And so it followed the narrative of importance. It followed the narrative and the messaging that was valuable for the books. And that's what got me to where I am today. I watched the behind the scenes for Lord of the Rings, and that got me into filmmaking. And yet, they seem to be taking, Amazon Prime and these creators seem to be taking this world lightly. And they have no idea how important this world is to people like me. And I believe, I'm a big fan of Peter Jackson. And I'm going to do the exact same thing as him. I think it's a grave mistake that they wouldn't include him heavily and look at the script. I think this is a problem. I think this means they don't value or respect his opinion, and that they ghosted him because they knew he probably wouldn't be very accepting of the way they're taking this story. But ultimately, I can't make any assumptions until we see the film. Well, I can make assumptions because they reveal to us what's going on, but I can't make a final judgment until I see the show, which I will sample. And then I will continue if I am intrigued and interested and feel like the show is upholding the values of not just Peter Jackson, not just my own opinion of the world, but also specifically Tolkien, the creator of the world. So, I want to finish off this video by actually playing a quote from Peter Jackson and what he valued in the story of Lord of the Rings and what they made a priority to film for their film trilogy, to make sure that the story, the script, the character development matches what Tolkien valued for their films. I'll play this clip and then we'll end the video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Subscribe, like, comment. Let me know what you think of the upcoming show, The Rings of Power on Amazon Prime. Love you, and I'll see you in the next video.
Did you have some kind of mechanism, in a sense, so that you could make sure that you were true to Tolkien?
Well, we didn't want to put any of our own, certainly in terms of the thematic material, we didn't want to put any of our own baggage. I mean, we had no interest in putting our messages into this movie, but we thought that we should honor Tolkien by putting his messages into it. And we thought he cared about things. The countryside and the rise of evil, and he cared passionately about certain issues, and we thought what we should do to honor him is to make sure that what he cared about ends up in the movie. That's what we tried to do.